Hello guys, good evening and welcome to this channel. Um, my name as always is the Kenyan Baobab, and we are here today this evening to discuss a little about a household name, a name that you've all heard all the time, I'm sure, the name Ibrahim Traore. Now, what we want to look at this evening is just a little about the history of Burkina Faso, beginning from Thomas Sankara and how Ibrahim Traore has mirrored into that. And we would also like to see why the Africans in particular are celebrating about Traore and other military juntas that are setting the course for revolutions in Africa. We've seen Traore becoming a symbol of African Renaissance. We've seen him becoming the poster boy for Africa, showing that Africa is going to become something new in the near future or in the distant future. We also want to see the Russian effect in the new scramble for Africa. We realize it's kind of a scramble for Africa once again. Um, we want to also know why all of a sudden now Traore is an enemy of France and Emmanuel Macron, if I may say so, and why, of most important, why Traore is reviving revolutions across the whole of Africa. Um, and we've seen coups being celebrated in West Africa. We've seen coups almost happening in Eastern and Central Africa. And we will finish by looking at the lessons that young Africans are taking from this scenario of Ibrahim Traore and his involvement in trying to dawn a new African, bring a new dawn first to Burkina Faso and then to extend it to the rest of Africa. Join me as we watch this video before we come back with an in-depth critical analysis of what we are going to watch.
The current situation in Burkina Faso must be understood in the context of history. And that history, in my view, starts from 1983 with the emergence of Thomas Sankara. When Thomas Sankara took power in what was then Upper Volta, he changed the name of the country to Burkina Faso, the land of the upright men. That was seen as a revolution, and many things happened under the leadership of Thomas Sankara until he was eliminated in 1987. We now know that one of the people who participated was a close compatriot who became the president, Blaise Compaoré, and that is in the public domain. That short stint was so dramatic in the lives of the people of Burkina Faso and in Africa that Thomas Sankara became an icon. And the rise of Ibrahim Traore is almost seen as a reincarnation of Thomas Sankara and his revolutionary fervor. And that is why he has become a poster boy for the new Africa. But let us understand how it came about. In the year 2022, in the month of January, the government of Roch Marc Christian Kabore was overthrown in January. And part of the accusation against the Kabore administration was that they had failed to eliminate the Islamic insurgency in the northern part of Burkina Faso. But Kabore did not stay in power for too long. In the month of September, in fact, in the month of September, the administration that had overthrown Kabore in January, that was the administration of Jean Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba. That is the administration that overthrew Kabore. He himself was to be overthrown in the month of September the year 2022 by Ibrahim Traore and his colleagues. And the reason why I think Traore then very quickly became the poster boy was because of the decisions that he made to sever ties with France. His language was that we had remained a neo-colonial state for too long. Re-echoing what Thomas Sankara had said, his language was that we must have our own resources. If it is our uranium, let us use our uranium. If it is feeding ourselves, let us engage in agriculture that is going to feed our people. Let us ensure that we, the Burkinabe, are doing things that are in the interest of the Burkinabe and therefore in the larger interest of the continent of Africa. And it also came at a time when there is general disillusionment with the ballot. Africans had been persuaded, particularly after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, that this thing called democracy as defined by the West was the alpha and omega of good governance. You had to have multi-party politics, you had to have periodic elections, and people went to the ballot. In many cases, the ballot was not very useful because the vote was stolen. And if it was not stolen, the people who emerged from the ballot did not do anything for the people. So the people wanted drama, the people wanted change, the people wanted sound rhetoric, the people wanted Pan-African rhetoric. And in many ways, Ibrahim Traore, as it stands now, represents that. But remember, his administration has only been in power for 3 years. In the life of a nation, that is a very short time. And one may say the beginning is good, but the journey is still long.
Welcome back, guys. We watched the initial part of the video, and I would like us to dive in and look at some of the issues that have been raised by our very good professor, PLO. From the video, as you can see, the professor is claiming that Ibrahim Traore has come as a leader who does not want the trappings of power to prevent him from taking care of the nation, from making the interests of the people be the primary reason why he is at the helm of the country. Many African countries after colonization were left with a colonial mindset of democracy, democracy of multi-party politics, democracy of elections. Many African countries, almost all, save for a few, hold periodic elections. But after every election, there is always the claim of the elections have been stolen. The victor did not win rightfully. There is plenty of bloodshed in the quest to assume office. And we have seen over time, elections are not really a democratic way of getting leaders to sit at the deciding table, but elections have become a way for those people who are not desired by the people to steal their way into office. We see so many cases of bungled elections, so many cases of elections either getting postponed or candidates, I would say favorite candidates, um, getting imprisoned or getting incarcerated for manners of accusations that do not really make any sense. But we've seen that in the case of Ibrahim Traore, a selfless individual has emerged. who's not conforming to the traditional post-colonial ways of democracy. The African man, the African woman, the African person is calling for a move away from the rhetoric of stolen elections. They want a pan-African way of leadership where leaders do things that benefit the people. Leaders make things happen. We've seen so many leaders in Africa go into office through the ballot, and for the whole term for their being in office, they do not get anything in return. They do not serve the people. Um, they get 100 times richer, many times richer than they were before they come into office. And we as Africans and Africa as a whole has remained in a state of stagnation. We have not grown as much as other countries who we were at par with at uh, uh, um, 50 or 60 years ago. Those countries have gone far much ahead, but the African countries are still experiencing the same problems even after involving themselves in politics of democracy, politics of multi-party, politics that are involving, and what has that got us? A stagnation in terms of development, uh, in terms of the uplifting of the lives of the African person. And as a continent, we've lagged behind, despite being the continent with the most natural resources that would have taken us to a whole other level of development. Let's listen to the next part of this video.
Many in the West sometimes don't understand why Russia is attractive as an alternative to the Western countries. The history is long, but let us cut it short. Russia was not a colonizer. Despite attempts by some Western historians to say that they attempted to colonize in Africa, they did not. So there is no colony of Russia. And even when the Soviet Union existed prior to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1989, and we use the word Russia as if it was the same as the Soviet Union. At least that is what happened in many parts of Africa. And what did they do? They were seen in the early days to be positive supporters of African initiatives. In Egypt, during the administration of Gamal Abdel Nasser, when the West had refused to build the Aswan High Dam, it is the Russians who came. In Ghana, the Russians were friendly to Kwame Nkrumah, of course, then a Soviet Union. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, when the UN had refused and or failed to come in aid of Patrice Emery Lumumba, it is the Russians who are called, and then Lumumba was called a communist. So the Russians were also present in Angola to support NATO. They were present in Mozambique to support Mondlane and Machel. They were present in Zimbabwe to support Nkomo and Mugabe. They were present to support the African National Congress in South Africa. Their presence in Africa has been seen as positive. And they have been seen as a friend who does not want to humiliate and dominate. They may have their interest in having minerals, they may have their interest, as indeed every country does, but they are people you can call friends, not fair weather friends. And it is in that context that then they become a natural choice for two reasons. One, historical. Secondly, because they have the military wherewithal. Remember that this world is the law of the jungle. And if you have a friend who is feared by your enemy, then that does guarantee your security. And it's that context, therefore, that you see Russia have become, in many ways, the protectors of this administration at the request of the administration. Because if it were not so, history tells us that you can be eliminated. And we have had many rumors of attempts at the life of Ibrahim Traore. And these colonizers, they don't do so directly. They use your very own. They create fifth columnists within your very own system. And if you had any doubt, how did they eliminate Thomas Isidore Noel Sankara? Through the people that he thought were his friends. In Kiswahili we say, kikulacho kingoni mwako. That which bites you is inside the clothes that you wear. And that is why you need friends who will stand by you, come rain or shine. And for the moment, the Russians have demonstrated that they are such friends. When one talks about friendship, particularly in this harsh world, where in truth it can be said there is a new scramble for Africa, in this harsh world where the European powers, former colonizers, are losing their territory and influence one by one, in this harsh world where the Western countries, the conceptual West, believe that they are losing their territories to Russia and China, to be a friend of Russia is to invite enemies from the West. And that is why you see, using even African institutions, they threaten Burkina Faso, they threaten Mali, they threaten Niger. Using different methods, they try to ensure that they drain water out of your pond so that you cannot survive. So in the short to medium term, it is going to be a difficult time. Difficult because they'll try to choke you. They'll try to ensure that they create an environment where your people rise up against you. They'll try to ensure that there is dissatisfaction. So going forward, what I would myself suggest is that the engagement be structured and be beyond human beings. Human beings can only exist for so long. But in order to ensure that friendship is guaranteed, the friendship between Burkina Faso and Russia must look beyond Traore and beyond Putin. And that can be done by ensuring that the engagements are of mutual strategic interest for the countries, so that if it is in agriculture, if it is in the mining sector, if it is in tourism, if it is military, then those structures are put in place, and 100 years from today, holding all factors constant, they can survive those who entered into them as agreements. You know, when Traore came to power, and let us retrace the history again, that he came to power after Compaoré had been removed and had sought asylum outside of the country, I think in La Côte d'Ivoire. He came to power after Jean-Marc Christian Kabore's administration had been taken away. He came to power after Damiba had been taken away. And when he came and he appeared to be relieving and reviving what I call the Sankaraist philosophy, he became an immediate enemy of Paris, led by Macron. And Macron, you see, has carried himself almost as the latter-day Napoleon Bonaparte. To the extent that he has done so, anybody who is not towing the line, Macron, I think, sees himself, and this is subject to debate, not only as Napoleon Bonaparte, but also as Charles de Gaulle. And in that regard, he believes that the territories which were colonized by them must behave. Remember in 1958, after the yes-no vote, in which case only Secretary of Guinea voted no, they used to refer to former French colonies as territoire d'outre-mer. These are our foreign territories in the distant land. So when you break loose, as Burkina did, says, what is happening here? Who do they think they are? Do they think they can withstand France? So it is personal anger. It is ego that has been hurt, and that can be dangerous. Hence, the reaction that you see from Paris. In other words, from the standpoint of Paris, Ibrahim Traore and his compatriots are giving a bad example to otherwise good boys and girls. When you look at Traore and Burkina Faso now, I think there are four categories of people when you look at how they are dealing with the Traore. There is category number one of leaders who are wedded to their colonizers, who think, oh, this young man, we've seen many like him, he's just a flash in the pan, he'll come and go. That is category number one. And I'm sure they tell their masters in the West, we have seen many, didn't we see Sankara? Didn't we see Lumumba? Didn't we see Nkrumah? Didn't we see Machel? Category number one. Category number two are those who are saying, I wish it was me who was getting this kind of adulation. What could I have done in order to ensure that my name is emblazoned on every other media? Those are actuated by ego and malice and envy and jealousy. That is another category of African leaders. The other category of African leaders are those who fear. They fear that what this young man and his compatriots are doing is setting a bad example, and I must now look very keenly at what my young men and women in the army are doing. They can't sleep because they fear that they themselves can meet the fate of those who are removed by Traore. So they fear in that regard. Then there is the fourth positive category. They are few and far between. They are the ones who say, yes, these things we call unconstitutional changes of power, this is not unconstitutional change of power. This is rebellion, and not just rebellion. This is revolution. And they are saying, let us not ostracize these young men and women. They actually represent a new generation of Africans who are impatient, who feel let down. Let us support them. One of them who is emerging in that category is my very good friend, John Dramani Mahama of Ghana, who upon returning to power in Ghana told the ECOWAS leaders, we must engage the Sahelians. And he's been to Ouagadougou. He's been to Bamako. He's been to Niamey. They are saying that this situation is a clarion call to the entire continent of Africa, that if we don't change for the better, then we will be eliminated.
So welcome back, guys. You have heard from the man himself, analyzing the situation of Burkina Faso and the implication of Ibrahim Traore's leadership in the Sahel region. What I noted very keenly was the reason why Russia has been considered a friend by first of all Burkina Faso and some other countries. And our good scholar has looked at the historical instances where Russia has more than once proven that they are not a fair weather friend but an all weather friend. Um, Russia has involved itself in the crisis in Ghana. It has involved itself in the crisis in Egypt. Um, Russia has also gone to Congo to help out Patrice Lumumba. They've been to Angola to help out NATO. They've gone to Mozambique. They've gone to Zimbabwe on 2 occasions, actually. They've been to South Africa to help out the ANC. And so Russia, in as much as it is a country that would also have its own interests within the African continent, interests that include minerals, interests that include the heritage, but they also give their fair share of the aid that those countries need at that particular time. And when you have a friend who does not just come to you when they need something, that friend who comes to you when you also are in need, that's a friend to keep. That's a person you can entrust with your valuables. You can entrust them with your minerals, in as much as um, they will benefit from those minerals, they will benefit from your resources. You are also going to greatly benefit from whatever they are bringing your way. And Russia has proved to be such one friend. Um, we can also see why it has been so jittery for the West. That now Ibrahim Traore is embracing Russia and shunning the West. Um, Russia is has a good military. They have a military that can dictate wars. They have a military that can uh, basically the West are not ready to engage the Russian military at any given time, and that is why uh, Ibrahim Traore appears to be well protected by the Russian administration, and it is causing a lot of jitteriness um, among the ranks of countries like France. Um, we've also looked at somewhat the reason why France is quickly becoming a sworn enemy of Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso. France has had a free will way of doing things in Africa, mostly in the former colonies. Uh, they have enjoyed unchecked power in the shadows. They make decisions. They sway elections. They get resources. They get minerals at will. But here comes a leader who's mimicking the way Thomas Sankara used to operate. Now there's a leader who's telling them that you do not just come for our minerals, you do not just come for our resources, you do not dictate how we do our politics, you do not dictate our leaders. We want to do it ourselves. We want also to grow ourselves, to develop this country using our own resources and not depending on the aid that you give us while stealing a lot of resources from our country. Um, and it could not have come at a worse time when France have a leader like Macron. Um, Macron has always believed that the former colonies of France are by extension still territories of France, and therefore they need to behave. They need to toe the line of France. They need to listen to what France is saying. They need to give France what France wants. And that is now coming to an end. And you can see from the reactions among the French ranks from the president himself that they are so angry at leaders like Ibrahim Traore for trying to steer clear of the French way of doing things. Now, there's another crop of leaders, the African leaders especially. From the video we've watched, we've seen different categories of African leaders who've also uh, shown different opinions or different views to the situation in Burkina Faso. We've seen that there is a crop of leaders who would have wished to be having the limelight that Ibrahim Traore is having. Ibrahim Traore, for the last 3 years, has been all over the news, within the continent and outside the continent, the world over. Ibrahim Traore has been on the news for mostly the right reasons. Uh, People would have different opinions, but then the bottom line, is that Ibrahim Traore has been in the news for all the right reasons for most of those days for the 3 years. So there's the crop of African leaders who would have wished to be that person. They would have wished to be Ibrahim Traore. But they have different situations in their own countries, and therefore they can only watch from a distance of jealousy and we've seen some of them call out Ibrahim Traore as a cool leader, but you can see where that is coming from, which is a point of jealousy. We've also seen another crop of African leaders who are fearful. They fear for Ibrahim Traore. They do not know what next. Uh, uh, in their speeches, in their minds, they are foreseeing a wrath of the West on Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso. They are seeing him as a leader who's going to get his country into trouble by starvation or by a deprivation of the essential necessities that the country would need from outside. There's also uh, the other crop of African leaders who are very dismissal about the whole situation. They are looking at Ibrahim Traore as a passing wind. They are comparing him to leaders who came with a revolution and for a short time did a lot of change, and then they were wished away by the West through infiltration within the ranks of those leaders, such as Thomas Sankara. And there is also the crop of leaders who are praising Ibrahim Traore, who are looking at this as a rebirth of the African continent, who are looking at this as a stepping stone to the continent getting united in a way that the continent can be able to develop without needing the help of the West or of foreign countries. There is this crop of leaders who want to do things the Ibrahim Traore way. We've seen leaders now who want to make inroads within African countries so that as a bloc we are able then to help each other out without depending on external forces to come out to help. And France is the biggest loser in this whole situation. They have lost their rights to the mining sites. That means they do not get the uranium that they really want from Burkina Faso. They are not getting the other minerals, and they are not able to move things as they used to before, because now there's a new friend, and they've been kept on the horizon. They're getting pushed into the abyss, and it has not been a really pleasant experience for Macron and for his administration. Um, the last thing I would comment on this video and is the lesson that the young people of Africa have taken from this situation. The young people are learning from Ibrahim Traore that success does not just come. Success is not an individual achievement. If Ibrahim Traore would have wanted to achieve the success that he has achieved so far, all by himself, he would have fallen flat right at the beginning. But because Ibrahim Traore has been focused, he has looked for the right friends, he has built trust within the ranks of his own military. He has been courageous. He has been selfless. There's no convoys in his visits to any parts of the country. There are no military helicopters flying in and out of the high office. And we have seen that this is a guy who is showing the young people that you can be a leader and not have an insatiable appetite to, to grow wealth and to amass the wealth and to become extremely rich at the expense of the people of your country. We've also seen that uh, Ibrahim Traore is showing the African continent and the young people that you can rise above yourself, you can conquer yourself, and with discipline and with courage and with a focus on the end goal, you can get there. Thank you guys for watching this video from the beginning till the end. As always, your support is most important, so you can share, like, and subscribe, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.